She told me flat out, "Don't wear that shirt. It'll embarrass me." Then, at a dinner I was paying for, she introduced me as her roommate. I didn't argue, I just quietly covered my own meal. A week later, she was messaging me from her parents' couch. Looking back, the warning signs were subtle but persistent, like small stones in my shoe. They were annoying, easy to ignore when I was focused on moving forward. I never realized those little signs were actually leading me over a cliff. For 3 years, I thought Amelia and I were building a future together. In reality, she was just living in my home while I footed the entire bill. I run a small metal fabrication business, making gates, railings, and custom furniture. My hands are rough, my clothes often stained or burnt. I make a decent living, enough to be comfortable, but I'm not the guy who wears suits and ties. That seemed to bother Amelia more and more over time. The tension always escalated around her friends, especially Claire, a woman who seemed to judge people by the label on their shoes. The ultimate test came last Friday. Claire's birthday dinner was at an outrageously expensive restaurant downtown, the kind with a wine list thick as a dictionary and portions so tiny they looked like hors d'oeuvres. Amelia was nervous all week. That afternoon, as I was about to leave the workshop, she called. "What are you wearing tonight?" she asked, voice tight with anxiety. I said I planned to wear my new dark blue button-up shirt and clean jeans, a shirt I bought just for occasions like this. She hesitated. "Not the flannel you wore to the brewery last month, right?" she asked. I told her no, it's a solid color, it looks fine. "Okay, just try to look polished," she said, not sounding convinced. "Claire's fiancé will be there. He's a partner at a law firm." I knew I'd heard about Claire's fiancé, Richard, roughly 500 times by then. When I got home and changed, Amelia looked me up and down. "I don't know, Mark," she said. "That shirt just screams, I work with my hands. It'll embarrass me. Can't you wear the gray sweater I got you for Christmas?" The sweater was thin cashmere and unbearably itchy, but I wanted the night to go smoothly. So, like a fool, I changed. At the restaurant, it was exactly as I expected. Loud, crowded, and pretentious. Claire, Richard, and 2 other couples all looked like they stepped out of a fashion catalog. The conversation centered on stock portfolios, European vacations, and complaints about finding decent contractors. I stayed quiet. Throughout dinner, Amelia treated me like furniture, obligated to be there but ignored. If I spoke, she talked over me. She laughed too hard at Richard's dull jokes. The final blow came when a colleague of Richard's stopped by. Richard introduced everyone. "This is my fiancé, Claire, Jessica and Tom, Sarah and Ben." Then, vaguely, he said, "And this is Mark." The colleague smiled, extended his hand, and asked, "Nice to meet you, Mark. So, how do you know everyone here?" Before I could answer, Amelia jumped in with a fake smile. "Oh, Mark is my roommate." That word hit me like a punch. The air left my lungs. I looked at her, but she was already chatting with Claire, avoiding my eyes. My roommate, in the apartment where I pay all the rent and utilities because her credit isn't good enough to be on the lease. At the dinner being charged to my card. Her friends glanced at me with blank expressions. They'd heard it, and it confirmed they didn't consider me one of them. 3 years of swallowing small insults, paying for her lifestyle, feeling like I had to apologize for success earned in a workshop rather than a corporate office. It all came crashing down. But I didn't get angry. I didn't cause a scene. Instead, something inside me went completely still. I finally saw everything clearly. I stayed for 10 more minutes, sipping water like a ghost at a table I was paying for. Then I stood up. "Excuse me," I said, voice calm. "I need to use the restroom." Amelia barely nodded and kept talking. I didn't head to the restroom. I walked straight to the host stand where our server was taking orders. "Hi," I said quietly. "I'm with the big table in the back, party of 8. Is everything okay, sir?" "Everything's fine," I said, pulling out my wallet. "There's been a change of plans. I'm leaving and need to pay my share now. We'll need separate checks." The server looked confused, but quickly calculated my meal's cost. About $60. The total bill was over $600 and still rising. I handed him a $100 bill. $60 for my meal, $40 as a tip for you. Sorry for the trouble. He nodded, understanding. I walked out that restaurant and didn't look back. I didn't drive home right away. I found a quiet overlook, sat in my truck, engine humming. I expected anger. Instead, I felt relief, like dropping a heavy burden I didn't realize I carried. My phone buzzed 40 minutes later. Text from Amelia. Where are you? The waiter brought separate bills. Another text. Mark, this isn't funny. Claire's birthday is ruined. Come back and fix this. Then a call. I let it go to voicemail. Another text. They expect us to pay the whole bill. I don't have that kind of money. Call me now. I started my truck and headed home. On the way, I called a 24-hour locksmith. At the apartment, my apartment, I let him in. For $250, all the locks were changed. While the locksmith worked, I went to Amelia's closet. It overflowed with designer clothes and handbags. Many bought on a supplementary credit card tied to my account, meant for emergencies only. I didn't throw her things out. I packed her suitcases. My roommate would need to move out. The fallout was immediate. Angry texts kept coming for an hour. Amelia demanded I cover the bill with Claire's fiancé's money, humiliating. I simply replied, no, and turned off my phone. The next day, I felt rested for the first time in years. I untangled my life from hers piece by piece. I called the credit card company, canceled the supplementary card, and reviewed charges totaling over $5,000 on spa treatments, boutique shopping, brunches with Claire, and a weekend winery trip falsely billed as work. She had been living a lie, using me as a stable foundation for her fantasy life. I contacted the auto loan company to start transferring the car loan to her name. At 3 p.m., Amelia showed up, frustrated after failing to enter the new locks. I cracked the door and said, I changed the locks. Roommates have separate leases. Your occupancy is terminated. She cried. Frustration, not sadness. Begging to stay. I told her to call Claire or Richard for help, since her so-called friends abandoned her now. She pleaded, promising to change, go to therapy. I didn't respond. An hour later, Claire came to pick Amelia up. Social media blew up with vague posts about men who can't handle successful women. I ignored it and blocked them. For days later, a police officer called. Amelia accused me of stealing a diamond necklace, a gift I bought her. I showed the officer security footage of her packing the necklace and the receipt proving it was a gift. He warned Amelia about filing a false police report. Amelia's lies destroyed her credibility. Claire ended their friendship. A week later, Amelia was texting from her parents' couch. Angry, bargaining, then sad. She had to sell the car after missing payments. Forced to wait tables at night. Meanwhile, my life has never been more peaceful. I invested in my workshop and spent time with friends who accept me. I even returned to that fancy restaurant to pay the full bill plus a generous tip for the staff, taking responsibility for my part in the drama. The best part? Reclaiming my life and finally feeling unapologetically myself, wearing my favorite flannel shirt with the burn mark. I'm no longer anyone's roommate or embarrassment. I'm just me.